George Groves versus Chris Eubank Jr. post-fight review. So George Groves defeats Chris Eubank Jr. in the World Boxing Super Series semi-final to secure a place in the final of the World Boxing Super Series. So to me, this wasn't even a close fight in my opinion. I don't think that was a close fight at all. I've briefly touched on this in other videos before about Chris Eubank Jr., but I did notice the technical flaws coming back again. He has improved, I think, a bit technically since the Saunders fight. He still has a bit to go in terms of improvement of his long range boxing and his technical skills. Chris Eubank Jr. actually uses his jab a bit more, but I think there'll still be work to be done on that. He does use his jab more than he used to. I'm not sure. I think it's more of a range finder as opposed to as anything, or a jab to keep his opponent off him. I felt in the ring Eubank Jr. kind of rushed his work a wee bit with his feet and his head. He wasn't quite intelligently working his way into the inside. This was maybe a case of the moment getting to him too much, being in a big event on a big stage against a world level fighter like George Groves, and this mental state or mindset or attitude in the fight maybe cost him. But you have to say, before going into the fight, George Groves you would have given to the long range boxer and the more power, and I think Eubank Jr. was being cautious, and that knockdown that he had or he received in what, round 1, round 2, something like that was more out of panic than having a suspect chin or being hurt. And George Groves is a hard puncher in a way, so there's nothing wrong with Chris Eubank Jr.'s chin from my point of view. It was just maybe a state of panic, of maybe a bit anxious, and whenever you're panicked or you're anxious you can make silly mistakes like that. Like, from my personal point of view, I think that's what a lot of Vladimir Klitschko's sort of knockdowns that he's received has been from. I mean, some of them were obviously because he was legitimately hurt, or his chin got exposed, but there was knockdowns that he just done out of panic and not so much out of having a bad chin or maybe necessarily being hurt. You have to make an exception to the Joshua fight. The Joshua fight, it maybe was the mental state that got him to get back up. But anyways, let's not sidetrack too much. This isn't about that. So as far as what either guy does from here, as far as Chris Eubank Jr., I think a Caleb Truax match for the IBF super middleweight title isn't a bad shout, or a fight with Jimmy Cox would be another. A fight with Jimmy Cox would be another good shout, I think. You know, a former George Groves opponent also, or he could step back down to middleweight. But I don't think him going back down to middleweight, I don't think he necessarily has to do that. I think he can be alright at super middleweight, just try and fix his technical flaws. Which brings me on to the next subject, which is the trainer situation. Now, as far as what I know, Chris Eubank Jr.'s got a pad man, and I don't know, Ronnie Davis and his dad's there, but I don't know what the role is in his training camp. But yeah, full-time trainer. He definitely needs a full-time trainer. And there's no point in trying to do this on your own. Even Floyd Mayweather had someone to tell him or to instruct him. Floyd Mayweather had a trainer. So yeah, as far as what George Groves has dislocated his shoulder, so whether the final gets put back or whether he has to maybe not fight in the final at all, we'll find out in due course. I hope that he makes a very safe, healthy and a quick recovery and gets into the final and wins this, because I think out of the super middleweights that are left, I think George Groves as the most likelihood, in my view, not in the book review or anything else, but I think George Groves should win the tournament. And I did say Chris Eubank Jr. would win the tournament, and I said he beat George Groves, but he did not. So I personally think that George Groves will win the tournament if he's in the final.